Hello and welcome to the Youth Justice Podcast, where we explore the intersection of youth empowerment, justice, and the community. I'm your host, Hayat, and today I'm thrilled to have an incredible guest with me. She's an experienced educator, youth advocate, and leader in creating equitable opportunities for young people, Leoma James-Sarr.
Hi.
Thank you for joining me today.
Yay. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. To start, could you share a bit of your background and what drew you to work in education and youth development?
Okay, so my background, I have a bachelor's degree in communication and broadcasting and also in political science. The goal was to be the next Oprah or Al Sharpton. I was trying to be talk show sensational at first, and then I was like, maybe I could be on CNN. And so I was really into politics, really wanted to be on TV. And so I started going into the communications program so I could become a news anchor. And I did do that for a little while for Rural News 8, but that's like in Pullman, Washington at Wazoo. And then junior year, I got this opportunity to go to Kenya. And when I went to Kenya, I was just like, oh, news is dead. Like I was hearing stuff about the US that wasn't real. I was realizing a lot of the information people back home were listening to about Kenya was not real. And I was just like, there's a lot of incorrect messaging going around. And I was like seeing it firsthand. And I just said, you know what? I don't think this is the route that I want to take because there's this saying that they say, and it's like, if it bleeds, it leads. And so, like, if it sounds more dramatic, if it has more casualties, if there's more rah rah in it, then people are like more prone to listen to it. And so that's why news is written the way that it is, because it's meant to catch your attention, it's meant to get views, it's meant to do all of these things and elicit all these feelings, even if it's not 100% true. And so when I realized that, I was like, I don't think that this is the field for me. But when I came back to Seattle after being in Kenya for 4 months, I was like, I don't want to be in this environment either. So I did finish my degree because I was already in my junior year and I only had 1 year left. And so I finished with communications, I finished with political science, and I got my global leadership certificate for going out and being a part of that program and doing some other internship work when I returned. So after graduation, 3 months later, I went into the Peace Corps. I was in Namibia for 2.5 years teaching English at a Tally Combined School in Namibia, in Ohangwena, Namibia, in the northern region. And it was incredible. And that's where my love and my enjoyment for education started. I'm in youth empowerment. I was teaching seventh, eighth, and ninth grade English, and then mostly actually eighth and ninth grade English, and then seventh grade like arts and technology classes, and like we were practicing English in those classes. And then we had like speech and debate club, we had girls group, we had like so many different clubs, and I was like feeling the best that I've ever had within an educational environment, being around all African teachers that were just so encouraging and so supportive of the students. And then that's where my love for education started. And I came back after 2.5 years in the Peace Corps. I came back and got my master's of education from the University of Washington, and that's where it all began.
Well, it is amazing how personal experiences can fuel our passion for justice and equity, especially for young people. So,
Hmm.
building on that, how has your work with youth and communities shaped your perspective on justice and equity? And which lessons or insights were the most impactful for you?
That's a really good question. I would say, hmm, I would say one of the biggest lessons that I've learned through this work is that the people who are most impacted are the people closest to finding the solutions. And so the people who are closest to the challenges are also closest to the solutions, or however you want to say it. But it's so real. Just acknowledging that like a lot of the things that I went through as a youth are a lot of the same things that my youth are experiencing now. And so I think like a lot of the inspiration just comes from them, seeing how they've been able to navigate systems and structures and like recognizing too that even though we do face like similar issues, like so much time has passed and not a lot of time at all, but the world is like changing constantly and they are battling things that I never had to experience,
Mhm.
even in like the age of social media, like we had social media growing up, but the way that it's being utilized now is very different than how it was utilized like when I was a high schooler. And so I just think that a lot of the things that we want to do for our youth, a lot of the work is just like kind of thinking back to our younger self and looking at like our inner child, the wounded child, and asking ourselves like, what did my younger self need to be successful? And what could have my younger self like really benefited from to become the best version of myself at that time? And so a lot of the times I associate that with people. And so I think back on the people who helped me get to where I came. And there's a lot of people who helped me along the way. And I try to be that same person for the next generation and for the youth. Um, and then other times I just kind of think about what systems and what functions I was able to thrive in and try to create those containers now and seeing if, those things still work and still apply to the youth of this age, who just need more support and more resources. Truly at the root of all of it, I think it just all comes down to like human connection. I think in the world of technology, in the world of, just being online all the time, many of us are like glued to the screen like for hours a day, whether that be, the work phone or the work computer or the TV or whatever. Even when you're at the gym, there's screens everywhere. So like finding more ways to just connect to them and remind them the importance of like the human experience and
Mhm.
just like connection, community, and how powerful it feels to be a part of a community that's nurturing and loving and just wanting to be a part of that as well.
Yeah, it's so important to center equity in conversation about youth development. And you're right. So let's talk about the practical side of fostering leadership and resilience in young people. And since you've worked extensively in education and in youth programs, what do you think are the key elements in fostering leadership and resilience in young people, especially those who are navigating systemic challenges?
I think the biggest thing that I would say is just a lot of the times people say we need to care about the youth because the youth are the future. And I was at a rally one time and I remember hearing, why do we keep saying that the youth are the future? Like, no, the youth are right now. And it always comes back to me. It always reminds me like so much of our work, so many things that we want to do, we keep speaking about it in like this future term, like yes, in a few years, in 10 years, when all the old people die, then the youth are going to be there to lead the way. And it's like, well, no, actually, by the time all of that stuff happens, the youth are not going to be youth anymore. They're going to be adult people and they're going to be walking around here and they're going to be making decisions. And I think that's what the saying is supposed to mean is like, yeah, they don't have power now, but they will have power. But I think a lot of it is just remembering that they actually should have power and should have agency over their lives like today,
Mhm.
like right now. And I think ultimately a lot of adults and a lot of older people, like I remember growing up, and there's just like this vibe from older people where you just are like as a child or like as a young person, you just think like, oh, they don't respect me because I'm young, or they don't see me because they feel like, oh, I'm so much younger than them, or I'm half their age, or whatever the case may be, or they don't think I have enough experience. But at the end of the day, it's like everybody has something to contribute, everybody has something to bring. And I think the youth and the young energy, anytime they're in spaces, like the ideas that they come with, the solutions that they have are not the same as if you ask someone who's like, had 50 years of experience or whatever the case may be. Like, I think when you are looking at these different demographics of people, when it comes to like, just like the level of empowerment, I always think about it wasn't really until like I turned 30 where I was like, no, I am like, and even not even like 30, I would say like my late 20s, I was starting to feel like, no, I'm empowered. I can make decisions. And for some people, that doesn't actually happen until like way later. Like sometimes it's people who are like in their 40s who finally, claim their agency. And sometimes it happens way younger. Like sometimes there's people who are really, really young, like 20, 21, 18, who are just like, this is who I am. This is what's going to happen. This is what's going to, and I see them and I'm like, yes, I'm
Mhm.
inspired by them. And so I think we just have to stop thinking about this whole when we think about like youth empowerment and we think about youth programs and how to support this generation of people. I think it's just important to remember that we are talking to leaders and we are talking to, people who are breaking glass ceilings like right now, like not people who are, you know, gonna do this in 20 years. Like some of them
Mhm.
are in that space and that mind right now. And those of them who are not can get to that space if they have the proper love and support and connection from the people, the elders who can pass the baton. And, I think sometimes we wait too long to pass the baton. Like, no, we can all still keep running together, but pass it, just pass it. Like, give people the power at earlier ages and they might surprise you.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's also because elders and those who are older than us tend to try to gatekeep wisdom as because we always say, oh, with age comes wisdom.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to when you said that, the youth of our time right now are they're living in a world that's constantly changing, constantly changing. And it's like, what is today? What's in today won't be in tomorrow, and the world changed from last week. And I think the elders can't quite grasp that because they're not used to their world changing so quickly. They're not used to seeing so many different people
Yeah.
in such a short amount of time, especially like with social media, for example. And I think we've kind of been conditioned into thinking that, the way that the world changes has been is normal. It's our new normal for you and I, but for older people, it's like they probably didn't get the news that was going on in different parts of, the world until maybe weeks after it had happened. But for youth,
Yeah.
it's like they're seeing it live,
Right
like
now.
in this moment, this is happening
Mhm.
in different parts of the world. And I think kids have just been so desensitized and it's like I can't even do anything because the older people, the elder people, what are they doing to
Yeah.
stop this? And then I feel like youth don't really have a say, and even in the youth programs that they might be a part of, it's still like you're still a kid. You're still a youth. You don't really know much. You haven't really lived through anything. But it's like just because they're not physically living through things doesn't mean that they're not mentally living through crises after crises, especially with the social media and the endless with the known websites like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and even unknown, websites that you and I probably don't know on the dark web that youth have access to for some reason.
Absolutely.
And
Hmm.
so, yeah, it's like, okay, yeah, the youth are the future, but if we say that, then that's not the youth that we have now. Those are the youth of the future. And so it's
Yeah.
like, what are we doing to make sure that their future because older people working towards a future that they're not really going to be a part of is kind of counterintuitive and counterproductive.
Yeah.
Because in 30 years, these lawmakers and these policymakers, they might not be around.
No.
But, the 20-year-olds, the 18-year-olds, the 17-year-olds, they're most likely going to be around at that time. So why can't they have a say in the future that's being built for
For
them, but
him.
it's not by them?
Exactly.
And
Hmm.
so basically, yeah. So, going off of that, how do you think educational institutions can better support marginalized youth in becoming active participants and leaders in their communities? And what changes would you like to see in how schools and programs engage with these young people?
Hmm. I remember when I was in high school, I was a part of the mayor's youth council.
Hmm.
And we used to meet, and it was so empowering because they would bring us into like these big old, the big old boardrooms at City Hall. And sometimes they would come in and they would ask us, like, what do you guys want to see? What do you want changed in your community? And I don't know if they still do that now, but I remember feeling so empowered, like at a young age, of just like, oh, wow, I'm sitting in the room with like the people who have the power to change. And I'm sitting here with people who are going to be able to hear what I'm saying and implement those things. like without having to like go up the whole channel of like
Mm.
first you tell this person and this person and this person and this person. Like I don't have to play telephone. I get to tell the change makers directly, no gatekeeping. And I feel like bringing back things like that, like even on like high school level or whatever that mean, even middle school level, like having people who are supposed to be there to like express the needs of the students. And I don't mean like the student government people, because I was a part of student government when I was in high school. And I think student government people have their function, but I mean like a youth advisory board, like schools implementing advisory boards where all students can be a part of it. Whoever wants to be a part of it can come and just like voice out their frustrations, voice out their ideas and their concerns, and just, allow like feel like they're actually talking to the change makers, and then be able to actually see that change happen, being able to see it in action. And I think those things would empower youth. I think another thing that we can do to empower youth is just like, I mean, I think the one of the biggest challenges that we have within the current education system is that the things that are taught in school are not necessarily the things that would help the student like as becoming like an adult person, like to grow, like not on like a educational level, because obviously the things they're learning in school will help them grow and develop on that level, but I mean more so as like to gain independence, to gain understanding. One of the things that I see a lot of the times is like people, they talk to the youth and they say, oh, you're a kid, you're a kid, you're a kid, you're a kid. And then the second they turn 18, it's like, you're an adult, move out. How come you don't know how to take care of yourself? How come you're not independent? How come you don't have a job? How come you're not ready to buy a house? How come you're not? I mean, and it's just like, whoa. It's like literally one day you're a child and the next day, like you're an adult. And I think if we start talking about it more, like from like maybe age 16 or 15, and I see this happen in a lot of like African communities where like, especially to the girls. And sometimes I know a lot of people will say we force young girls, especially in different countries, to grow up a lot faster. And not
Mhm.
even in different countries, but even here, especially firstborn daughters, we see it a lot, are like taught how to take care and nurture and, whatever, the whole family from like 16, 15 years old. They're already doing those things. But I don't really mean it in that way, but I just mean it more in a sense of like independence,
Mhm.
like this is what taxes are. This is what happens when you get a job. These are the things that you pay. This is how you apply for a job if you want a job. These are the things that you wear for a resume. These are organizations that can support you. Like just finding more ways, like incorporating classes or workshops, especially like maybe in the sophomore, junior year, senior year of high school, where like there's like literally a class devoted to like how to be an adult, how to function independently, you know? And even some kids are going to need support with, doing filing for emancipation, who don't have guardians, who don't have people taking care of them, right? And we see a lot of those students just like slip through the cracks. But, just finding ways to empower students younger, and letting them know like what is coming after, what they have to look forward to, and just making sure that they are well equipped to be able to do those things.
Yeah, I agree because I feel like once they hit the 18 mark and they go to college, it's the professional development that's really highlighted of like, oh, this is what you need to do to get a job and this is what you do need to do to, for interviewing, like you said. But I think for high school students, it should be mandatory for them to take personal development classes
Hmm.
on how to take care of themselves, like because cooking isn't really a gender-based, whatever that they try to make it. Cooking is active survival. Like you need to learn
Yeah,
how to cook to survive as a person because as a person you need to eat and you need to drink
yeah.
water and you need to learn how to do these things and you shouldn't, expect it to be done for you.
Right. Even hygiene,
Yeah.
how to take care of your body, like, how to take care of odor, the proper
Mhm.
way to brush your teeth. Like, and I know some of these things, maybe people hear them and they're like, oh, that stuff, their parents should teach them and whatever. But I think one thing we have to realize is like right now in this day and age, in this economy, parents don't have a lot of opportunity and a lot of time to really sit with their children. There are people who have more opportunities to do those things. There's also a lot of people who just don't. And it's not because they don't want to, it's just because right now within our society, within this working day and age, like people are burnt out
Mhm.
and they're tired. They're tired and they're exhausted and they just don't have it in them anymore to do those things and they want to, but it's just so hard because sometimes they're working two or three jobs just to like, keep the lights on. And so I think it's just really important for like schools because that's where students spend most of their time, but not just schools, but like community centers and anywhere that offers like youth programming to like really start equipping students and equipping people under 18 for how to navigate life and into adulthood.
Exactly. Exactly. And finally, reflecting on your own journey and work, what advice would you give to professionals or advocates who can create more impactful programs, initiatives for youth? Just quickly.
You don't know everything. Just remembering that, like, humble yourself. We don't know everything. Like, it doesn't matter how many years of experience, it doesn't matter how many youth you've served, it doesn't matter where, like, you can always learn from your students. You can always learn from the people who you support. Like, if you let them teach you, you will be so effective. If you feel like, oh, I can do this because I no, you can do it. You have skills to do it. You have experience to do it and if you want to do it well, the biggest gift is just to listen. Because your students, your youth, they will tell you what they want, but you have to listen for it. Sometimes they're not going to tell you directly what's needed, but they might start telling you a problem and then maybe you could start thinking of a solution. Or they could end up telling you a solution for a problem that they have, and you can just start implementing those things. Like we don't know everything. We have to be humble. We have to be open. We have to be willing. We have to be flexible and recognizing that in this time of turning tides and new environments and changes and all of those things, if you want to survive, if you want to do well, the best thing you have to do is to pivot and keep pivoting and keep pivoting and keep pivoting. And a lot of those pivots come from understanding the changes. And a lot of understanding the changes comes from listening, being observant, watching, being in tune with those that you're serving. And yeah, listen to your students.
Yes. Thank you, Leoma, for sharing your wisdom and experience with us today. Your work is truly inspiring for not just, people, professionals, but also youth in youth empowerment. And I hope that our listeners will take so much away from this conversation. And so, if you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and like and share with others who care about empowering young people. And until next time, let's continue to build a more equitable future for all youth. Thank you.
Thank you.